Good evening, everyone. Yeah, welcome to this very international ROUGOL meeting. A couple of quick announcements. So next month's meeting is hopefully going to be Stuart Swales, ex of Acorn and Colton Software, who will hopefully be joining us from Scotland to talk about his various history of his products and things he's worked on. October is going to be a sound-based talk given by Jason Tribick, who's currently doing audio input API, and may have Jim Lesurf joining us as well, possibly. He's very much into his sound stuff. But that's for the future. We'll just have one more person join. Right, Stefan, if you want to unmute yourself, I will hand over to you to talk all about the Cloverleaf project.
Hello. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Nice to see you again. So I'm the mastermind, so to say, about the Cloverleaf RISC OS project. And I want to tell you some things about it today, so you have a better impression what's going on. And I think first of all, I want to make a demonstration of ChatCube, which is our first contribution to RISC OS. And that's one of the ideas of my project, that I contribute the workforce of my company to improve RISC OS. And that is for some part programming new programs that are missing in the RISC OS world, or adopting or converting open source programs to RISC OS, and also programming drivers and improving handling of the graphics user interface, for example, things like that. Okay, so I just will go to the RISC OS now. This one here. Yep. Okay. Oops. Well, I just start with this here. The ChatCube. ChatCube is an instant messenger for RISC OS, but it offers not only chat in RISC OS or to RISC OS users. We have already implemented Telegram client. So we plan to add more and more other clients. Here's also a list of what are the possible clients, what we could implement. At least we think that it's possible to implement these clients. But we have done only Telegram so far. So when you have first to register on RISC OS, that you can add your Telegram client. But you can, if you don't have a Telegram account, you also can create one with the ChatCube. So you don't need to go in your mobile phone or whatsoever to create a Telegram account. You can do it in ChatCube. So this is a ChatCube window. On the left side, you have all your current chats, or also some new members, because at the moment all the members are open. Normally in messengers you can contact or chat with only the people who you add to your account, but at the moment it's all open, so everyone will see everyone. That we will change probably when there will be more members, but at the moment it's very easy to communicate to all the RISC OS people in ChatCube. You can also create a new chat. Then you go here, and then you just click on the person you want to add. So I just click on this and then I click on create. Or you can easily make a group chat. Then you just select the group chat option and then you just click on the people who you want to add to the chat. Yeah. And then you create it. Okay, now this is empty. So I can go here back to the ROUGOL chat. So of course you can just type some messages in and send it, or you can send files by simply dragging the file onto the chat. You have an additional menu also when you press the menu button, then you can delete the send message. That means this will only delete for yourself. Unset is delete also for the receiver. You can forward to other people. That works the same like you add a chat. Okay. Then we have here the stickers. You can choose other type of stickers. You just click on it. Then you have the screenshot option. You can make a screenshot with the chat or without the chat, or you can also select an area. Then you just make a drag, and then it will be sent in the chat. You just confirm it, and it will be sent in the chat. Here on this side, you can also, when it's a person, you can delete the chat or clear all the history of the chat. We have here option for different orders. If you want to see only the last message sent or want to see the people are online at the moment, you can select it here. We will also, until tomorrow, probably add here another option that will filter, for example, links or email addresses or photos or files. So you can easily find something when you remember, okay, you sent somebody or you got information somebody, so you can very fast find the wanted information. Yeah, I think that's mainly it. What I wanted to say about this, about the other clients, I think to implement further clients takes between 2 and 3 weeks full-time job, and that means about 1,500 to 2,000 euro cost. Yeah. And this program was the first program that my programmers did for RISC OS, so this was a learning job also. And we used also the TBX library and the toolbox for it. And we improved the TBX library a little bit to display also PNG files, for example. we will offer these changes also for the public for free. Okay, so then we come to the information about the project. The goals of my project, of the RISCOS Cloverleaf project, is mainly to find new users all around the world, because the main problem that RISC OS has at the moment is that there are not enough users anymore, so that companies or people have too much motivation to develop new products, and sooner or later also all RISC OS users will have died, because it's already 30 years ago that it was created. So that is the number one problem that must be solved. We must make RISC OS public worldwide. And to do that successful, we need to update RISC OS to the current technologies. This is the second point of the project. So we need to fill out the gaps in programs, in drivers and usability, yeah, and implement the missing drivers for technology that have been developed in the last 20 years. That's mainly in the internet and like Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, and the new NVMe drives, which are the fastest mass storage at the moment, so that we can compete to other operating systems. And my goal, I mean, my personal goal is that I want to use RISC OS in real life again. That means daily, and I want to use only RISC OS. I don't want to use Windows or Macintosh, Mac OS or Linux or whatsoever. I just want to use RISC OS 100%. And one important thing for that is that there's a working browser with which I can open all the websites that I want to use. And thankfully that RISC OS development has done, so that we expect to be released soon. So we don't need to care in this project about it. So we will concentrate on the other stuff. Then number 3 of the project is that we want to provide new hardware, so that normal computer users, they don't need to buy the different parts of the computer and put them together and burn or initiate the SD card with the operating system and so on. This nobody can do that as a normal PC user these days. They just should order the stuff in internet or can go in a shop and buy it. That is the only way that we can make RISC OS really popular again. Yeah. And to make RISC OS known around the globe, we need also one RISC OS brand that represents only RISC OS computers. That is a simple marketing step, because only when there's a brand behind it, then I think there's a good chance that in the future, well, nearly all people or many people will know about RISC OS. And that is the aim of my project, to make RISC OS popular worldwide. So next, motivation. Well, you are all RISC OS users, so you know why you support RISC OS, so I don't need to talk too much about this point. Yeah, you know why you like RISC OS and why you're in this computer group. And I think RISC OS is a very nice system, and it's worth that all other people on the planet also know about it and can use it, because other operating systems have some disadvantages, which not only is about the operating system, but about the companies that are behind this operating systems. So it's about customer service and support and service cost and so on. And what I want to do is to give more choices for other people also when they buy a computer, that they can decide between different operating systems, so that the existing companies also don't have too much power over them. Yeah. And as RISCOS is based on ARM technology, it's also one computer system that saves a lot of power, electric power, so it's good for the environment. Okay, this unique features of RISC OS, we don't also need to talk about it. That's more for people who never heard about RISC OS. Status of RISC OS, well, that you also should know. We need the drivers for Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, and NVMe drives. Then we want to look into the possibility to have the GPU support. And the graphics user interface, there are also some points that should be improved. One thing is also that the filer can display all kinds of languages, which is important when we want to make RISC OS international. We need also for all languages the country definitions, I mean the text for the operating system, and that means also the programs must support other languages. So that is also something where I want to look into with my project to motivate other programmers of existing programs to motivate them that they will offer their programs in other languages. And for that, for example, we can offer them a free translation service of the text. They only must implement in their programs that the language files will be used. Yeah. And what my company will do when we get the crowdfunding and we have the funds for it, then we will look into what programs are missing in RISC OS. For that, we need also feedback from the people, from the users, what they feel is missing in RISC OS. And then we must decide how we can solve the problem or which programs to choose, that we convert from open sources or we make totally new programs, that we will see. The support, what is needed from you, or what I would like to have from you, is one is to spread the word about the project, so that as many as possible people know about it. That can be also if you have connections to some news magazines, reporters, or so, you can encourage them to report about RISC OS. like that, or you share links in your social media like Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or whatsoever. We need also the current programmers, that they work with us or they help us to program or improve RISC OS where it is needed. But there can be also other people. There's not only about programming, for example, writing manuals or documentations or some other support. Yeah, there's many jobs that can be done. Yeah. Yeah, and the last point is, of course, helping to fund our crowdfunding project that will be on Kickstarter. And it's planned that we will start the campaign in about 5 to 6 weeks, but we will see if everything is organized until then, that we can start the official crowdfunding for it. And the crowdfunding will be 60 days, so that we still have enough time to activate more sources for promoting about the project. But the important point about the crowdfunding is that the people who are motivated to do some funding in the crowdfunding, that they engage in that project in the first days of the crowdfunding, because then the crowdfunding platform sees that this is a popular project, so they will push our project more, so we get more RISC OS supporters in the future, or just during this 2 months. So the more people support the project in the first days, the more RISC OS users we will get at the end. So that was it. So we can start now if anybody has some questions, then they're welcome now to ask me.
I guess I suppose the first question is, if you're doing crowdfunding and RISCOS developments are and ROUGOL are they all gonna tread on each other's toes and get? How do you think that's going to work?
No, the plan is to work together with all groups. I mean, especially in ROUGOL, this important organization in RISC OS world. Everything should be basically discussed and organized in ROUGOL. So we can hear all voices, what is important and what we should think about, because I was away from RISC OS 20 years. I don't know everything also what's going on, and I'm not a specialist in RISC OS anyhow, I mean in the programming. So that's very important to work with these people together. And I'm planning also to fund bounties of ROUGOL. This depends how much funding we get, but at the end, I hope that we can fund also all of the bounties in ROUGOL, so we can improve RISC OS as fast as possible.
Hey, I have a few questions. First of all, thank you for the presentation. Very enlightening and inclusive project. I think it's a great idea. I do. But I would like to understand, since it's a company, right? And a company has to make profits. Where is going to be the profits made by this company? In which type of market? What are your goals? What is your roadmap and things like that?
Basically, we hope to make profits with selling hardware, I forget to mention this about the hardware that we want to offer. That is one desktop machine or two, one low cost and one high-end machine. I mean, high-end is well, with higher specs. Then possibly 2 laptops and one all-in-one PC. Yeah. And in the future, there can be also tablets or even mobile phones. Yeah, this is also the long-term goal. What I have in mind to also offer RISC OS as a mobile operating system.
Okay, so you are trying to create, if I understand this correctly, you're trying to create an ecosystem where RISC OS fundamentally runs on all these different type of hardware. Am I correct?
Yes.
Similar model to Apple, if you want, which is it's a good idea. I think it's a good idea. So few doubts that I have on this thing, because I actually do work on ARM, not on RISC OS, but on other platforms. And we do know that one of the problems with ARM is that they are not pushing the desktop CPU yet. Yes, they announced the new X series, which is actually an attempt to have a desktop CPU. There is the ARM 77 that can actually beat in performance the Intel i5. So definitely the laptop market is a potential good market. But the moment you say you want to compete with macOS and the recent choice of Apple migrating to ARM, and their impressive ARM performances, which the actual ARM cannot reach. I know this for a fact, because we started to test this hardware. There's going to be a big performance gap between the next MacBook Pro, which is going to be based on ARM, and every other ARM sold on the market, which is the same problem that actually, for example, Android phones are facing. Each Android phone cannot compete with the performance of iPhones and Apple tablets. So there's going to be this potential problem ahead for Cloverleaf to actually be able to compete with macOS on the ARM desktop environment. Not talking about the application yet. Of course, the application, we all know it's a problem because they have a lot of applications and all this stuff. But that's something that can be, done if you create enthusiasm around RISC OS, and people will want to join somehow. So there's going to be, for example, a centralized online shop that could help very small developers. Like when we were kids, we were called bedroom developers. I think you've been one of us. That could actually potentially make applications and without having the whole infrastructure that a modern business requires. For example, one issue, just one issue in the UK. If I start to sell my own software on my website, I will have to pay VAT and extra taxes. So it will be, for example, an interesting idea, just mentioning it, to have a centralized application store that takes care of these accounting things for bedroom coders that cannot do or cannot afford that. That could be potentially an attractive thing. So what I'm trying to mention here, what I'm trying to suggest is, what are the actual attractiveness of this project for engineers? Definitely it's not a corporation thing for now. Maybe in the future, if it becomes very, very popular. But for now, what are the attractiveness?
Well, we plan also to have a store, and actually I'm working with Andrew Ronsley together, because he is responsible for the updating of the hardware. And the plan is to take over the Plink store and make that the general store for our system. Yeah, I mean for the Cloverleaf RISC OS. Yeah, because this is, this is clearly also one important user handling point that you have one easy system where you can get software. Yeah. Because at the moment when you come to RISC OS world, you don't know where you get software. Yeah. And you must first search for 1-2 months to understand what software is available, what works on the system, and so on. Yeah. So this is one thing that must be improved. And yeah, at the end, it will look similar like Google Play Store or Apple Store. Yeah. Yeah. And about what you said before about the ARM CPUs, I don't see, at the moment, I don't see a big problem with that because the most important that we have a working desktop environment with the basic programs. And for me, the current ARM CPUs are enough powerful to solve that. Yeah. What is more important that we get the GPU power unlocked. Yeah, that we have the drivers that can access this 2D, 3D, and video decoding.
Yes.
Yeah, that is much more important at the moment. Yeah, and in the future, when there's demand for high power ARM CPUs, we can also use server CPUs like from Amazon, the Gravity 2.
Yeah, X as well.
Yeah, that is possible.
Workstation that like 16 cores ARM, very powerful, and runs NVIDIA cards. I use a couple of them. They are actually very powerful. They run Thunder X, but it's a 64 only. So I think for that type of stuff, we need to switch to 64-bit. Same for us.
And at the end, I mean, when we really get big, we can produce our own ARM CPUs also, yeah. That is also possible that we license at the end, like any other global player from ARM, the CPUs, yeah. Or at least work with some also maybe Rockchip or whatsoever other chip manufacturer together, that we say, okay, we don't have the power to make our own, but we can work with a manufacturer together that we get what we need. Yeah.
Okay, so that's interesting, actually. Thank you so much, because I think I'm starting to kind of envision this roadmap. So one of your first goals then is improving portability of this question, right?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, we must have the good usability, and we must have the basic programs available so that the users get a good user experience. Yeah, that is the first goal, and then from there we can go everywhere. Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Thank you so much.
Yeah, welcome for your question also. Okay, who has the next question?
Stefan, Web. Thank you for an interesting talk there. Just going back, if we're trying to get people interested, then isn't Wi-Fi a prerequisite? Because most users would want that. And so it's a bit of a chicken and egg situation that really it would be better to have Wi-Fi before you started pushing out on a more ambitious front, or perhaps that's part of the plan, I guess.
Yes, I mean, Wi-Fi is the most important of all. Yeah, that and we should look at that first, that we get the funding. Maybe we need to talk about this also. How long will be the development for it, and who will do it? Yeah, that is also one important question. Who really wants to do it? Because so far, I understand that nobody wants to do it, even if they have the money for it.
Yes, money gets you so far. It's having the resources to do it. But it's very interesting. particularly around the crowdfunding, because things like Spectrum have had the old sort of like Sinclair Spectrum market have
I've seen that.
doors on that. Though I gather Spectrum Next seems to be doing reasonably well on that front.
Yes.
Now.
Yeah, the Spectrum Next is actually selling very well, and you can find that. So the original price from the shop is between 230 up to 300 quid, but on eBay it's already been sold for up to 800 pounds, and it's selling. But that's because the market the ZX Spectrum Next look at is actually not the desktop market, it's the gaming market. The ZX Spectrum has an incredible amount of games, thousands of games, which unfortunately we do not have in this class. There is this revival right now of retro coding and retro gaming, which has literally, took by storm YouTube. You had hundreds of channels that talked about retro computing, retro gaming, which actually, as a side effect, took also RISC OS. There are now more retro RISC OS users than modern RISC OS 5 users. Archimedes on eBay, they're going like it was raining, and they're all selling it. And people are enjoying the old games. I'm one of them. I'm enjoying them too. It's really cool, but that's a very specific market. So, which is, kind of leads back to the question, maybe, what is the market that you guys are trying to target with Cloverleaf?
That is mainly new users, because I want to find a new user base for RISC OS. Yeah, that's why I'm opening also new markets. Like at the moment, we're targeting USA. Yeah, and later we will go also back to Germany. But at the moment, we don't do it too much because of the problem, organization problem, to have two languages. I mean, marketing in two languages. Yeah, so we're just doing now in English, and then some later we'll do it in German also. But this retro gaming is for sure interesting source also for customers, and that is also what we plan to do, to put many emulators on the Cloverleaf RISC OS. Also possible the ZX Spectrum emulator, to get customers also by that, or at least to have it as additional argument why to buy the platform. Yeah, because I want also promote RISC OS as a computer for children, that they can learn about programming and general about computer technology. Yeah.
Again, sounds great to me. I can see different markets here going on, because the children computers definitely has to be a Raspberry Pi type of things, which costs a few pounds. So parents can buy it, but if children breaks it, nobody's gonna scream.
Yeah.
Things like that. But yeah, I think the Raspberry Pi type of things with certain aspects, it's a fantastic idea. I'm personally, but I expressed this multiple times on the forum. I'm not a believer of the home user market. It's a great market. It's a strategical market. It's a market where you have to be, right? But it's not a market where you actually make a lot of money out, because we have seen this with big companies like Commodore, Atari. We were talking about ZX Spectrum, Acorn themselves. I mean, as soon as the schools started to not buying from Acorn anymore, Acorn started to have troubles. The home user is a kind of market. It's a strategical market. You want to be there because you want your tool to be accessible privately from people, so they can learn how to use it. Totally on board with that. But you need to have a market that kind of produces money for the environment, the ecosystem that you're going to build of engineers, hardware engineers, companies, your companies as well. And nowadays, this is actually kind of an interesting problem for many companies, not just for RISCOS, because the open source world actually shrank a lot the possibilities of making business. I'm a strong believer of open source, but I also have to recognize that open source kind of reduces a lot the business market, because the availability of free software is is a potential issue for who has to make money. Generally speaking, what open source software causes is it rises the baseline. So whatever you develop to be commercial, sellable, whatever is the terms, the proper term means that it needs to have a lot more features than what you can get for free, right? And that means even more hours of developers, which means more cost, because time is money. When we talk about developing software or hardware, especially hardware, it's very expensive to develop hardware. So, I mean, I'm not trying to push in a corner, because, again, I do think you guys are onto something that, for me, as a RISCOS user and as a RISCOS passionate person, it sounds super cool. You know, I really would love to have a desktop computer that is secure enough, that is fast enough to use RISCOS to work, instead of having to use Linux, which I use, you can say, on an ARM laptop here, which is a very good laptop, but has to run Linux because it doesn't run RISCOS. So I am totally on board. I'm really trying to, to find all the things that kind of ensure me that this is going to be successful. Because if I can find something, I will hold on to it. Definitely. So please don't get it like I'm trying to, push in a corner. But
okay. Thanks, Paolo. Stefan, Wi-Fi has been mentioned as very important. On a slightly different, but what are you thinking about Python? I'm a lover of BASIC. I think it's fantastic, but not everybody agrees. And I like Python too, and it seems to be much more modern and with it than BASIC. Are you going to push Python? I mean, the Python support on RISCOS at the moment is a bit, it's a bit weak. It works all right, but it's very, very, very fragile. Are you going to do anything about that?
Well, I personally don't know anything about Python, but well, we will help with anything that we can help. Yeah. So when I know about problems, then we will try to solve that. Yeah. So at the moment, I think only one guy is working on it, and well, if there's anything that what we can do to help with the development, then I will try to do it. Yeah, but we must know about the problems, and then we must get to know also what needs to be done to improve the situation. Yeah.
Can I ask, please? My question is a bit more general, and I'm hopefully a little bit more in the future. I'm remembering the good that things like the BBC macro and to an extent the Archimedes did, and looking at what needs to be copied. And one of the things is that a computer that did things useful, easy, was delivered, and then anybody interested could delve into and start learning from it. Now, what disappointed me most about RISCOS on Raspberry Pi is that you need a fair amount of understanding before you get the thing working in the first place. We want to get all the people who don't know how to who don't understand, who can just sit down and work and use it and then start learning. But you do need people starting learning, because they're your future customers. And it's getting that market and that market right that's the important thing. Now, is that what we're aiming for?
Yes, that is one of the main points of the Cloverleaf project, to provide a product that you just can plug in and it works. Yeah, because over the Raspberry that doesn't work. Yeah, because You buy your parts there and there and there. Then you must use probably a Windows PC to make the SD cards. Yeah, this is nonsense for normal users. Yeah, you just must buy the computer, you plug it in, it works. Yeah, and that's why we need to make a new brand that provides that hardware.
Mm-hmm.
And
I noticed that somebody mentioned on here, kids at school learning Scratch. Yeah, primary school they'll be learning Scratch, and in general, secondary they'll be moving on to Python. So I would say for certain we need to have those covered, and those covered perfectly in time. I mean, I'm not pushing anything for now today, but that's what we need to be aiming for, as well as whatever else is for the future.
Stefan, another thing that sort of got my thoughts going was that obviously you're looking at bringing RISCOS into the more modern world. So how are you going to balance this thing about us as the older community, and I use the word collectively, and the newer community, when things work differently on some of the other platforms and they expect that to work in a particular way? And even if you're changing the way that RISCOS works, that long unsupported products suddenly stop working. Now, it may be important to one or two within the older community, but if we're not careful, it sort of stifles development. So what are your thoughts on trying to balance that sort of conundrum as you try and bring RISCOS screaming into the more modern world?
Well, I cannot say too much about that. I mean, my project is more about the future and not the past. So, I mean, it's always good when the old programs still work on RISC OS. Yeah, I mean, at least by the emulators. And I don't know if there's a problem with these old programs that they even don't work with the emulators. Yeah, I think that is maybe some programs about that uses zero page, and there was something changed in RISC OS, and now they don't work anymore. Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
One problem I can see with that is although some of the old programs work using Emulor, of course, Emulor puts various restrictions on RISCOS when it's doing its tricks to make this old stuff work, and then probably none of the new programs will work because it makes restrictions on memory usage and things like that. So, you know, Iris won't run, ChatCube maybe might just about run, and that's going to be an increasing problem.
I think, Brian, that's where the full-blown emulator sort of comes in from a point of view of ArchEmu and stuff like that. Or the precursor A310, I think it was. So where Emulor does a fantastic job, but you're right, it puts some constraints where a full-blown emulator doesn't do that. But I guess, if it was an ideal world, I guess we'd try and copy Apple and almost do on a fly sort of setup of the old program and recode it. But we haven't got their resources, I guess.
Is it feasible to run Emulor in a second core? So you've got two RISCOS machines in one. I don't know, but
it's probably better to have an emulator rather than Emulor running on a second core, possibly.
It's tricky, but I guess we are going to have to sacrifice some things to move forward. So.
Yeah, I mean, especially it doesn't make sense for 10 people. I mean, for a program that use 10 people to dedicate the work of one programmer for 3 months or something. Yeah, this simply makes no sense. Yeah, unless they want to pay for it. Yeah, then they can donate each 600 euro. Then we can maybe do it. Yeah, but and I don't see a problem. I mean, if you want to use the old programs, then you can use the old hardware. Yeah.
Yeah, I think this is a job for Vince Hudd. Oh, he just left his chair. Well, you could put it on your annual sort of.
Walked away. What are you talking about then?
About which programs to sacrifice for the greater good. Like a new category in your quiz.
Yeah, what should we get rid of?
Yeah, which program is holding up progress the most?
That'll be a controversial one.
I don't know the answer to that, but
I think I'd have to leave that as an open-ended one rather than put some options for it, or I'll get told off.
Well, it'd be worth knowing, wouldn't it? And then if you suggest a program, let's say, I don't know, let's suggest a program. What about Snapper? Fantastic program. Couldn't live without it. But if only 10 votes, then it would have to go, wouldn't it?
We have to erase all traces of it from the internet. That's easy to do.
Stefan, thank you for an excellent presentation, and even more for having the energy to start a new initiative when we thought we were, you know, I think mainly it's been sort of, I think, you know, let's get a fantastic new browser that's good to keep the existing base there and keep us, you know, as much as we can, certainly in my case, using RISC OS when I can, but not as my primary browser or my primary operating system. And for years, that's been the case, really. I mean, I use Artworks, StrongEd, and TechWriter, like my main three things, and Photodesk, obviously Messenger, and Data Power. You know, they're the kind of things that I like using on RISC OS. And certainly in terms of Artworks, that's exclusively what I would use RISC OS for rather than anything else, just because I'm familiar with it. So here's my question, you know, a new person shows up, you know, is using the operating system. They say, I don't know, I want something that's like Microsoft Word, right? So then maybe you say, okay, we've got TechWriter that's kind of like Microsoft Word, but it needs some updating in terms of compatibility and other things. Would you see sort of your crowdfunding sending money to Martin Werthner if he was amenable to that and saying, you know, here's our top 10 things. One of them is to upgrade the functionality of existing software, you know, as a key component of a system that people can say, this is my only system that I use.
Yes, I mean this is one of the reasons of my project also, that it's makes more sense for companies to spend development into new products or upgrade their current products. I was talking with Martin already about this, about how it's possible to upgrade Artworks or also TechWriter or EasyWriter or whatsoever, and the Gutenprint software also. Mm-hmm. He told me that that needs update, and we talked about it, that my programmers will update it. Yeah, mm-hmm. So we get a list of new printers that supported. About Artworks, he said that there's a problem that the code, I mean, Artworks is written in ARM assembler. Yeah, so to work yourself in that code is quite difficult. And only he could do it. The only possibility to make extension in Artworks or an easy way will be about the plugins. Yeah, there's some plugin option in Artworks, so we could program something there. And Artworks is also one of the main reasons why I want to come back to RISC OS, because I use Xara on my Windows system, and that is the program that I use every day. So I need also Artworks to work on RISC OS like it's Xara now on Windows. Yeah, so this is much advanced also. I mean, there are some tools that make life easier And I would like to implement the same in Artworks also, yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that, Stefan. I use Zara and Artworks. Artworks I much prefer because it's just, you just do it with your fingers. But Zara has much better text support. Very much better text support.
I find the Zara user interface much easier to use.
Yeah, that's interesting.
I can produce things on Zara a lot faster than I can do anything on Artworks.
You must be an engineer. I mean, Artworks is for artists, and I think Zara is for engineers. Just a sort of a quick thing, but it has got very much better text support. Artworks text support is weak, really. But in terms,
one of the things I like about it is being able to select anything and just key in all the values rather than trying to position things on the screen.
This is an engineer. You want you want Fusion 360.
The most important thing is that Stefan's been speaking to Martin Werthner, which is obviously key to everything.
Yeah.
Stefan, how do you imagine? I don't know how many RISC OS users there are in the world. I mean, apparently we're all going to die soon anyway, you told me. So I'll just make a note of that later. But
you look young enough to live for a while.
No, not that long. Yeah, I've used improve your appearance or touch up your appearance on Zoom. That's what it is. Talking of which, Stefan, we're going to need Zoom on RISC OS. Anyway, so how do you imagine you'll manage the conversation in terms of you're going to sort of get the existing user base involved in a conversation with you, thinking that's one primary target for your new machines? Or just imagine what you want is a box that can do something like Microsoft Word, that can do email, that can do some graphic stuff, that has an amazing web browser and does all those things. And that's your starting point. And we kind of get dragged along with that and get all the benefits of that, of those improvements and those systems and money coming in.
Yeah, that is the first goal, to have a base system that works fine for everyone. And then we can look into a special software, yeah. So we can get other niche software to work on RISC OS also, yeah.
But in terms of finding out what the priorities of the existing users are, have you thought about a way you might manage that, or is that going to be Vince Hudd doing that, or?
Well, well, the existing users, of course, know better what is missing. Yeah, so I will listen first to that people that are the current RISC OS users, because I know what the new users want or need. Yeah, I mean the normal users. Yeah, not the people who need Ruby and whatsoever stuff. Yeah, we must extend the program base one step after another, and we must decide which is the most important, then we do that, then what is the next important, and we do that, and so on. Yeah, and for that we need the feedback from the people. Maybe we need something like a voting system or so, and then one of people vote for this software to program next, and so on. Yeah, something like that.
The biggest difference to me there is when you do a search, be it Google or Bing or whatever, about half the hits these days come up with YouTube links, and of course you can't. It's hopeless on RISCOS. I mean, you can go through some back doors, but on a Windows or a Mac machine or a Linux machine, you do your search. The first 3 searches are a YouTube video showing you how to do it, and you click on it and you do it. And RISCOS hasn't got that, and that's what kills it.
But, well, you haven't got the latest YT player that Rake has done then, because that's got search built in. So you can actually search whatever you wish for. So if you've got RISCOS...
Searching with NetSurf, Doug.
Sorry?
You know what I mean? You still... I've used the YouTube conversion, but it's not. Well, perhaps I should try it again.
You probably want to give Rake's program a go.
Sorry.
Oh, I was just echoing what you were saying, Doug. You want to give Rake's program a go because that pretty much does everything for you, as far as I understand it. It'll search YouTube, pull up the videos, let you pick what you want, and then play it for you.
Yeah, that's version 2.02, John. Just being released.
Python, of course.
Yeah.
It isn't working. That's using
Sorry?
that's using a Python program, isn't it?
Yeah, and it works perfectly here with all the latest updates.
Yeah.
The other thing I would point out is that, again, I appreciate what you're saying. There's a certain degree of jumping before you can walk, because that is part of the browser project that we're working towards. But until we've got a sensibly working browser, there isn't a lot of point in trying to compile in extra libraries to do video streaming and the like.
Okay, what I was pointing out, Andrew, was that is crucial if you want anybody who knows nothing about RISCOS to use RISCOS, and he can't click on a link and see a YouTube video. He thinks this is crap.
Understood.
That's all I'm saying.
It's on the roadmap.
Yeah, that's also one point that we are looking into when we do the GPU driver. Yeah, that is number one thing that we will look into, that we can go the decoding of the videos by the GPU driver.
Right.
Yeah, great point about the GPU. That's very, very important. I think also in some of the hardware, the camera blob, which I think we do not have access yet. I don't know if, as a company, Andrew, you guys have had access to those API from Qualcomm, whatever is the producer of the SoCs, the camera stuff, and for the GPUs.
So, were you talking to me, Paolo, or to Stefan?
Talking to you, Andrew, or Stefan, because I think some of these blob, the binary firmware that for the camera on some of the system on a chip and for the GPU, they are only available to other companies, not to like publicly available.
We haven't pushed hard on those areas, to be honest with you. Binary blobs are the bane of our existence, to be perfectly honest with you. So yeah, I think Stefan would say that once the Kickstarter is successful, hopefully we will have the financial and potential user base to approach some of these companies on a basis of, look, we've got N thousand units that require your drivers. Please give us the appropriate NDAs and supply.
Yeah.
At the moment, when sales are in the sort of hundreds rather than thousands, the impetus for them to sign those NDAs and give that access to that code is, do we say, limited?
Yes, there exists an open source project about building a GPU driver. And that covers also the RK3399 chip. So we hope we can unlock the GPU by that project also. Yeah.
I said, yeah, I think the GPU drivers are very, very important. For the browser, of course, for the desktop, of course, but also for gaming. And I do believe that gaming can be a big traction for this one. Also because a lot of new handheld devices, they are being made on ARM.
And Charles made a good point in the chat, though, that all of these things are just getting us to the point where we can do the things that other systems do. And so the question is, what do we do differently to make people use RISC OS rather than whatever they've already got? There has to be something else to bring people in.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, to make it in simple terms, if we copy Linux, why they should use RISC OS? There's already Linux, right?
Yeah, if it's exactly the same, what would be the point?
I agree.
So we need something a bit different, and whether that's just, I mean, for getting programmers in, it's sometimes you could say the kind of tinkerability, the kind of, some people like the low-level kind of usage. Of course, for a lot of other programmers, that's an off-putting thing because it makes all your work twice as hard. But yeah, how do we target people with those sort of things, those features?
The USP of RISCOS has always been that it lets you do what you want it to do rather than tell you how to do things. It's let you do things and link programs that aren't specially linked and lets you work with them and work with them quickly. This is how I've always seen it, and this is how I've always thought it. If you've been using Ovation Pro as a desktop publishing program, then you've got a bit of artwork in it, you double click on it and it opens it up into the application it came from. You try the same with Macs and hey, you start turning your hair out. And it's a matter of saying, look, this operating system works with you. It works the way you do for a whole range of working. Forget all the others. Just work with it. You're working with yourself.
That's right in theory. I mean, a case in point would be the way I was generating the charts for the RISCOS survey results, which I'm getting ready to upload once I finish the last page. But in practice, because what I was doing was I was creating the chart in Pipedream, saving the chart as a draw file straight into draw by dragging onto the draw icon, making some tweaks to the design of it, and then to convert it to a bitmap, I then copy it onto, save the file from draw straight onto the artworks icon, and then export from there as a bitmap. But at the same time, some people would see that as a problem because you're saying, well, that program can't do it. Why are you having to go to this program and then to this program?
The other thing is, and it's something I was doing a presentation on last week, and that is that one of the things that's missing and has been missing for the last 20 years during the whole of its development on the web and a whole also elsewhere is vector graphics. Vector graphics are perfect for the web, but they've never been used because the stuff that Microsoft came up with at the beginning was crap. And the people using vector graphics today are the professionals who've learned how to use Illustrator and who paid large sums of money for the software and even larger sums of money to learn how to use the software. I've been looking at the Affinity programs with some people who were interested in that, and looking at people who are teaching how to use vector graphics. One teacher on Udemy was saying, produced a set of tutorials, and 21 out of 22 was the introduction to the pen tool that he said is the most important one. And I said, well, hang on, if it's the most important tool, why do you leave it to next to last? Well, it's difficult. I think, well, I was teaching the equivalent to 9-year-olds on RISCOS using Draw. And then some of them moved on to artworks. Where's the problem? And the problem is that all the people who know how to do it are people who've come from it as professionals from Illustrator, and it's complicated, it's difficult. If we are the ones who are using vector graphics as one instance, when the web finally is capable of using it, using vector graphics generally, then maybe we've got a niche there. Let's use it. We've got the software.
Just coming back to the point that I think Vince made as well. Of course, I won't utter the dreaded words of RISCOS Select and RISCOS 6, because to be fair on that tranche of the operating system,
You just did, Doug.
Interoperability with graphics. So I think, sadly, we've lost some of that easy ability, and I know it's starting to be brought back into RISCOS 5. but certainly RISCOS Select stroke 6 had a lot of the graphics modules built in, so you could easily transpose any sort of graphics program, JPEG, into other formats.
This is also one thing that I want to improve. I mean, I had just some days ago an idea about it, that we should have a universal programming interface that can transfer any graphics format into another one, and also maybe some other like sound files and video files or 3D files and something like that we have, we can offer also to all programmers this as a standard module of RISC OS, because I think that is one of the main features of RISC OS, that there's one a set of modules that offers all important functions to the programmer. Yeah, and that not every program must implement for themselves all the necessary functions, but the operating system offers this to the programmer.
Isn't
That
that
was
Image FS was doing on RISCOS 6? Image FS, I mean, it doesn't exist anymore, does it?
as if you use RISCOS 6, doesn't it?
It exists, yeah, but I've got RISCOS 6 running on a RISC PC, and I like Image FS, but
Oh, sorry, yeah, no, that's something else. I thought you were talking about the RISCOS 6 implementation module along the lines of what Stefan was just talking about.
but I thought
Image FS was a program by Alternative Publishing.
Yeah, I was confusing
and that worked on RISCOS 3 and higher, as far as I remember.
okay.
Yeah.
I believe it works under Emula on a modern machine if you actually try it.
That was
I
quite
think the modules called. Sorry, I think the modules in RISCOS 6 and Select are called Image FS renderer or something like that.
Might be just image renderer or something like that.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, sorry, Vince. Yeah,
Image file renderer, I think.
That's it. That's the one.
That's what I was talking about.
Yeah, I mean, I mention that to Justin occasionally when I speak to him on the phone. So we will see.
Are you hopeful?
We'll see.
Okay, I'll say no more.
Stefan also mentioned sound-related things there. At the start of the meeting, I mentioned we've got Jason Tribick talking about sound stuff at our October meeting. Now he's popped up and said he's doing sound API. Stefan, is that one of your projects that he's started, or is that come from somewhere else?
Oh, that is what I started.
Okay, excellent.
Well, I just found him on the way to, while searching for good software. And well, then it came out that he would be interested to implement something for sound, because one thing what is missing is also input for the audio in, I mean the drivers. So that is also something that I want to organize, that it is built into RISC OS as standard, that it's more easy to implement such things when we get new hardware, that we have a standard interface where it's easy to plug in new hardware. Yeah. And that this integrates into the sound system, or that we improve the current sound system, that it's more universal. For example, that you can choose a sound output, that you can choose your internal speaker or the audio out or Bluetooth loudspeaker and so on, and to select also input channels and all this stuff here. So this is also what I see as part of my work, that I try to discover some flaws in RISC OS that we need to fill out, yeah, and that we organize this in a unified way. Because now at the moment it's more there's some programmer who want to do something and then he programs for himself like an ImageFS program, and this can do some formats, but it's not universal, and it's not supported by other people because it's not standard available on the system. So I want to create or to focus or to channel these features, so it's the value for all people.
I have to say I was very pleased to see that you'd contacted Jason Trebek, because he was somebody who was all poised to take point on the browser project until real life prevented him taking up the role. So it's nice that you've been able to find a project for him, and also one that he's so eminently suitable for, given his background in previous music and sound projects. So that was really, I was, really pleased when I saw that you'd made contact on that one.
Yeah, this was good luck.
Has Tony Bartram, have you contacted Tony Bartram? He's done a fair amount of work on sound envelopes and a sort of a sound system for his games.
Von Amok, yes, I was talking also with him, and we want to include his drivers also into the new sound system. Yeah.
Excellent. They're pretty good.
Yeah.
We're nearly as good as the old BBC now, using his stuff.
Right. Yeah. I think that that is very important, that we get a good set of functions into RISC OS, and that it's well organized. Yeah. That is not only that there's not only single programmers who do something and then, but not all people can profit from it. Yeah.
Stefan, you said you hadn't used RISC OS for about 20 years. You had that gap. So would you like to say something, if you like, about your background and what brought you personally back, and why you think this is a good use of your time, if that makes sense, like to invest your energies into it?
Well, that's mainly because I'm fed up about Windows. I mean, it's getting better, but it's still not what I would like, especially it gets slow on times and always upgrading every week or every day and rebooting my Windows without permission and some stuff like that. Yeah, that wants me go back to RISC OS, and I think RISC OS was a perfect operating system, only that Olivetti dropped it, and that's why there was no new developments in hardware, and that's why where we are now.
So you're here to correct a historic wrong.
Yes.
Good, thank you. I appreciate that.
About Olivetti, actually, that wasn't Olivetti, that was AT&T. AT&T purchased Olivetti and forced them to sell MS-DOS-based computer. And that's an interesting story that should be documented, because Olivetti, to sell the Acorn, which had an overproduction of the 8-bit, to sell the Thomson, which was another company owned by Olivetti, 8-bit computers, they had to create an Olivetti Prodest subsidiary company and call this 8-bit computer PCs, and that was a big issue. But there was AT&T, Intel, and Microsoft already playing, dirty games behind the scenes, dirty games, whatever it was.
Going way back to something we discussed right at the beginning, we're saying about Wi-Fi being absolutely critical. Now, that was also dependent on the underlying network stack being rewritten, so that's kind of critical as well. Now, back in January, when Richard Brown talked about RISCOS developments at ROUGOL, he suggested that was being worked on, but is that still, is that a project that's definitely ongoing still? Probably a question for Andrew rather than Stefan.
That's a question from me. I'm putting my fingers to my lips. I think this is the point where I ask you to turn off the recording equipment so I can answer the question. All I'm going to say is that an interesting screenshot passed my desktop last week.
Right. So still going, basically.
I couldn't possibly comment.
Right.
Did it make you smile, Andrew?
Yes, and it smiled back.
Right.
So basically, that underlying work that's Wi-Fi is dependent on is happening somewhere.
Yeah, if I'm truthful, the big problem with Wi-Fi again is this binary blob malarkey. That quite a few Wi-Fi chipsets have a binary blob, even in their Linux or BSD drivers. So you'd be surprised at how few Wi-Fi chipsets are actually supported out of the box by operating systems like BSD, and to a lesser extent Linux. In most Linux instances, there's a binary blob that comes from the manufacturer to sort of unlock the device. So it may not be a magic silver bullet, just having an updated TCP/IP stack to give you Wi-Fi, but obviously trying to build Wi-Fi on top of the creaky existing 20-year-old Wi-Fi TCP/IP stack is also not a good plan. So at least if we start on something that is modern and can track with what the rest of the world is doing, then at least we build ourselves on a firm foundation rather than a creaky one.
Okay. Stefan, how much money does RISCOS need, in your opinion?
I cannot say how much money we need. It depends always what you want to do, yeah.
Well, you know what you want to do. How much money do you need to do what you want to do for the next year or two, let's say?
For my company, I just need about 50 to 70,000 euro per year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Basically, I guess it's the cost of one full-time programmer, isn't it?
No, we are many cheap programmers.
Well, yeah. Some people doing it for love more than money, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a pity we can't convert free programming resources into cash, isn't it? And we've got a lot of free help. You can't convert it into money very easily.
Yes, I mean, that's good that there are still many programmers that just make it for fun. But when we want to do something fast, then we cannot rely on that people because they just work on their free time. So when we want to speed up the development, then we need money to hire professional programmers. Yeah, that's it.
That's very true.
But they wouldn't be general purpose programmers. They would probably have to have some background in RISCOS, would they not?
I mean, to get good, you need some time to work yourself in RISCOS, yeah, but it's not impossible, yeah. I mean, you need maybe 3-4 months that you understand RISCOS, yeah. But after that, you can work quite good, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
At least when you use just C, C++ or something like that, yeah. If you don't need to program in ARM or you need to program low-level drivers, that might be more complicated. Maybe this needs 6 months to work yourself into that, yeah.
I think it's worth reiterating that Stefan's programmers came fresh to RISCOS. Was it last year, Stefan?
Yes.
So if you look at ChatCube, if you like ChatCube, that's what some people who had never programmed on RISCOS before were able to produce relatively quickly.
That is also one thing that we still need to improve to have some better libraries. I mean, for that we use now the TBX library to make the redraw of the window. That is better automated because it makes no sense that every programmer that wants to work in RISC OS must learn the update of the windows. Yeah, this should be really automated, that they can just decide, okay, here you have text and there you have some graphics and there you have some input field and so on. We need some graphics library or some WIMP redraw library that does it automatically. Yeah. And that is one thing we were working on, improving the TBX library that did that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think together with those type of libraries, I think we also need something to help junior developers, because programming for a cooperative multitasking system can be challenging at the beginning. It depends by the application. Some applications are naturally more easy to develop on cooperative multitasking system, but for a calculation system, you need to know where to break the calculation, otherwise it will just show. If you're careful and you put the hourglass on, we'll just show the hourglass, but you gotta wait until it's done. A lot of people nowadays, they are used to work on preemptive multitasking systems, so they do not care about basically almost any aspect of the underlying system. They code like we used to code on a BBC Micro, for example. And then the multitasking happened magically behind the scenes. And that's, I think, it's one of the issues that new developers will find immediately when they start working on these courses, depending on their experience.
Yes, when we managed to get the GPU going with the 3D drivers, then I would also implement open source game engine like the Godot game engine. That would be a fun project to implement on RISCOS also.
I saw something on Facebook the other day about SDL2 not being available for RISCOS, because SDL1 exists, but I think SDL2 adds 3D, and that doesn't exist for RISCOS. Because someone had ported the original Archimedes version of Elite to SDL2, and I thought, we could port it back, but no, we can't, because we don't have the SDL2 library. But that's obviously a suitable gaming library that maybe would be useful.
I think there was an announcement some time ago that somebody started to port SDL2.
They should know. It depends on how bad it is.
Maybe it never got finished, I don't know.
I'm not following. I just remember this announcement at some time. Because I remember also some of the guy from the Linux that were all protesting, it's not always being done with the RISC OS, something like that. But that's why I remember the first part. So one thing that I actually think the community, and I'm trying to help with this as well in my free time, is actually putting some libraries to RISC OS that could be potentially useful. I think ROLDDE did a lot of progresses in that regard for what concern support for MCC, and well, C++, it's still the original AT&T madness. So I do not consider ROLDDE having support for C++, but GCC actually has a decent support for C++. It's not wonderful, but I think, and you guys, actually, question for you: when GCC 8 is going to be available? Any ATA on that?
GCC 8 stuff, I believe, is available through the GCC SDK community for RISCOS.
Okay, so it's not going to be available on RISCOS itself.
It's being, yeah, that's happening as we speak. That's what all these shared libs releases were all about. Is preparing stuff for GCC 8 and, as I say, GCC 10 now for the latest IRIS build. While I'm speaking about that, I hope to have the GCC 10 IRIS build out before the end of August to the people who would be expecting to get it. We should also be able to do the wider release now. The dependency on Reporter that was holding it up has been removed in the latest build, so that should allow me to make a more general release of IRIS very shortly.
Cool, thank you. I do have the GCC SDK, and I think it's fantastic, but I'm not sure how much it's going to help to have people coding on RISCOS, if you know what I mean.
Well, that's why I say it's happening as we speak. One of the things that Lee is working on is making the actual GCC compiler for GCC 8 run on natively on RISCOS.
Thank you.
A question for Stefan. Stefan, on ChatCube, the list of members, there doesn't seem to be any order. Is it alphabetical or when they sign on or what?
At the moment is the last message, but we are just currently releasing a new version where you can choose what you want on top, and there we have option who is last online, or at least who is online now, or the last message received.
Oh, good, great.
Yeah. And there will be also the filter option about the content, what you received, so you can find photos or files or email address or links faster.
Excellent, thank you.
Welcome.
If
you have any, sorry. If you have any features that you want implemented or you think it should be inside, then we always like to know it. Yeah. But at the moment, we don't put too much time into it until the crowdfunding has been passed. And after that, we will put more work into implementing some other clients and improving also the features in the ChatCube software.
David in the chat says, "Oh, the next thing to implement is Zoom support in ChatCube."
Yeah, everything is possible with enough money.
Personally, I'd rather see Twitter support.
Ooh. Interesting. Yeah.
I'm still sticking with YouTube. Full YouTube support. It's possible.
We just need another 50 programmers, don't we?
I suspect Twitter would be a little bit easier than YouTube.
Just need Andrew to finish his browser project, and with YouTube in it.
I mean, realistically, it's just a case of compiling in the necessary GStreamer libraries. I did ask Lee about it, and he's reasonably upbeat about it. It's just a case that it's going to make the browser even bigger and even more resource hungry. And, you know, the feeling was that we wanted to get a project, you know, try and get it out, and then evolve it to do the, you know, video is the obvious next step. But if you're careful, you end up biting off more than you can chew. And
I don't think the resource hungriness matters very much. If you're going onto a browser and you're looking at YouTube, you're not running multiple programs. You want to see how to improve my golf shot. I mean,
yeah, what I mean is it's going to take even longer to load because there's even more shared libraries that have to get loaded. It's going to be even bigger. Raspberry Pi users are going to suffer even more because it's coming off SD card and suddenly your footprint's gone up by another 100 meg that has to be loaded. 10 megaseconds, so that's another 15, 20 seconds that gets added to the load time and so on and so forth. So it's a balancing act. I'm not saying that it's not a priority, because it absolutely is, but I think it's probably best to try and get what we've got out so that we've actually got a browser with JavaScript, rather than spending another 6 months delaying things while we do video stuff and port those libraries as well. As I say, Lee seemed reasonably confident that it's doable, because a lot of it is already happening with things like the MPlayer port. But yeah, I mean, you've got to draw a line somewhere in order to get a product out. And right now, video is the bit.
You can promise something next year. I'm happy with that. It's always next year, but yeah, get it out. I agree, and get lots of people using it.
Well, that's the goal. I'd like to get the next release to be a bit more publicly available. That was supposed to happen for the April show. In the end, it got delayed because the April show got delayed, and also because an issue cropped up with a reliance upon an old version of Reporter. And so rather than releasing a product that had Reporter in it in an old version, we wanted to remove the requirement for including Reporter, which now happened. So that as I say, it's now at a point where I think probably this August release is a good candidate for being a more general release. I did find a couple of bugs in the August release, not critical stuff. One of the new features we've added in the August version is a lot more RISC OS protocol and local file handling. So you can now sort of double click on an HTML file on your hard disk and load it into Iris, etc. And that's working nicely. But some of the sort of sub-page navigation within local sites can sometimes bring up a save box rather than going to the actual page itself. So there's a couple of bugs and things in there that I'd prefer to get knocked on the head before general release, but maybe sometimes you just got to make a general release and be damned for it, and you can always fix it next month. Okay,
but on practicality, with this new release, could 9 times out of 10, let's say, could I do my Tesco online order?
Probably. I haven't tried Tesco, so I can't say. I can do my Lloyd's banking.
Now, Tesco's or Waitrose orders that I'm doing online, I have to go to Microsoft to do it.
I can do it. I can do Amazon, certainly. Right now, I'm told there's a problem with PayPal, so that might be the snag.
No, I don't pay PayPal. I pay with a card.
If you pay with a card, I would suspect that would work. As I say, if you do your shop, if you buy into the Amazon ecosystem and just buy everything from Amazon, that works.
Yeah, I try not to do that, but I know what you mean.
Yeah, I mean, the vast majority of things work. I mean, the puzzle is why PayPal doesn't, because with so many other things working, it's a bit confusing as to why that doesn't. And Lee's looking into that at the moment. So, I mean, it's based on the almost bang up to date WebKit engine from other platforms. So, it's got the same tech in it as Safari, etc. So, in principle, there's no reason why things that work in Safari shouldn't work in Iris. That's why we're just having to sort of puzzle our way through the bits that don't seem to do as expected, which again is why we're in beta rather than general release.
Andrew, one of my priorities was PayPal. The other is uploading. Will it be able to upload?
That's a good question. I haven't actually done any testing on uploading recently, so probably not on both of those scores in the August version. As I say, August's primary work was removing the reporter dependency and also implementing the various RISC OS protocols. So we've now got, as I say, loading of files via double-clicking on them, drag and drop. various shortcuts for opening new tabs from things. So you can open a file in a new tab, etc. The URL launch protocol, the URI launch protocol, so that you can click on links in an email client and have them open in Iris. All that kind of risk, all the sort of RISCOS-y stuff that you would expect to be in a RISCOS browser, but isn't in the sort of other cross-platform browsers. So, you know, it's an integration with the RISC OS desktop, so that, you know, you can click things and have things happen in a way that you would expect of a RISC OS application. It might sound silly, but I mean, even doing things like supporting HTML files without the /htm extension on the end, whereas a lot of other platforms, or a lot of other browsers expect an HTML file to have .htm on the end of the file name and get a bit confused when you give them a file name without a .htm. The latest Iris is okay with handling that kind of thing. So that's been where the effort has been this month, and we also testing the PayPal for you, Nigel. Lee is perplexed, but is continuing to investigate. So I think possibly uploading files might have to be something that we look into next month. My guess is it's just a case of providing a user interface to it. I suspect all the code's there in the engine, but it's just how we actually present that to the user.
Yeah. Okay. You know, I really want that. So if you can get that, do it ahead. That'd be good.
Yeah. I mean, the other thing I'd say, sort of, is that we are well aware that, you know, of the requirements of our individual shareholders and the funding that they've made available. So, sure. You know, obviously we're going to work towards the things that they've requested.
Apologies there for, I've just forcibly muted everyone for a second because I'm slightly aware that it's coming up to 4 AM for Stefan, and he might want to actually get to bed at some point. So I thought I'd break in for a second in case he wants to escape. You'll have to unmute yourself again, Stefan, now, because I muted everyone.
That's not a problem for me because I work 24/7.
You're secretly a robot, are you? Yeah.
And so far I'm not so tired. So if somebody wants to talk something more, then we can do it.
Okay, I just thought, just in case you were stuck there.
Yeah. Thank you very much for your concern.
Where are you? I thought you were phoning from Germany, but
yes, I'm living in Thailand.
Hence the big time difference. I think that probably does that make you our longest distance ROUGOL talk? I don't know. We had one from Canada once, but it depends where in Canada it was. Which side of Canada?
No, I think that's nearly the same.
Yeah.
Can we thank Stefan before he drops off?
Very good point, Dave. Yes, we
thank him for the interesting talk.
And also, maybe that makes a nice, because Leo can then edit it into the video later.
We can all clap. Can we all clap?
So yes, let me just say thank you, Stefan, for coming along. And,
if you unmute, we can clap.
Yay.
The problem with clapping is I think it'll only pick up one person at a time, won't it?
Oh, possibly.
Yeah. Thank you.
Possibly not on most as well.
Yeah, thank you also for your time to listening and hopefully for supporting in some way our campaign.